Hi, Herman.
Hello, Shunyun.
Hi.
How are
How are
you?
you? Good, good, good. Good morning. Good morning. All right. So, yeah. So, how's everything on your side?
Yeah, okay. We have
Okay.
a big the things are slowly quieting down. We have a big advisory board meeting today, so that's going to be fun. But
Okay. Okay.
yeah, it's
All right.
and, but yeah, and then after today, I'm actually taking about a week and a half's leave.
Uh-huh.
So that should also be good.
Okay. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So
But yeah,
that's that's like a regular leave. Part
Uh,
of.
yeah, the exams have started, and my students are only writing in about in the 6th of July or something like that. So
Okay.
there's this short gap that you can take
I
some
see.
leave, and
Okay.
we have this thing that we can carry leave over from a previous year, but
Uh-huh.
then only so long,
Okay.
and then
Okay. Nice. Nice.
and
Okay.
then you
That's
lose
good.
it if you don't take it. So.
All right.
Um,
So
I'm just
Victor should be coming, right?
Yep, he's online. I'm
Okay.
just
All right.
and there.
All right. Great.
And you? Have you been good?
Yes, I actually have a good news to share to
Ah, that
start.
sounds
Yeah.
interesting.
Okay. So Victor, can you hear me? Hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi,
Okay. All
everyone.
right. So
Morning.
I'll start off by sharing good news. I
Okay,
actually
nice.
found a developer who
Oh,
could
Oh,
who
cool.
could be joining us to as an contributing to an open source project, and he's
nice.
I would say experienced. Okay, and just finishing. He has been basically building some IT systems for one of the universities in Taiwan, and
Oh,
just
wow.
sort of switching jobs. He's going to work for us part time. Probably like 10 hours per week. But I also, because he wanted to improve his English, and
Oh,
I suggested that, and he's also interested in open source, so I
okay,
suggested
cool.
that he could get involved. So yeah, I will try to onboard him, and also yeah, I'll be probably sending his email. Okay, so
I'll
probably
into the Slack
maybe
group.
Herman can invite him to the Slack channel. Would that be all right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, yeah. So he may be weaker in terms of conversation, but probably reading, writing, English should be fine. Okay, so yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
nice.
All right. So let's start the update now. All right.
All right. Yeah,
Okay. All
that's
right.
awesome.
So
Thanks.
yeah. So okay, go
All
ahead.
right.
Yeah.
Let me try to share my screen. So I made some uh new changes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they're not drastic, but they are relatively different.
Okay.
Okay, so I tried to design this. I don't really know what to call this tab and that type because it's not necessarily a description. But just by looking at it, it's a bit of a description to say, okay, in our data structure,
Mm-hmm.
we want to have all of this. These are the
Okay.
key elements. We already know what sublist is. I just have to look for that document and copy and paste.
Uh-huh.
But the idea is we have a type, and if you notice here, what I was thinking of from a data, because of from the data size perspective,
Mm-hmm.
even though I know Python is not going to work. I noticed in your thesis the bytes were like 8 bytes or something, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
mistaken, and I'm guessing that's because it's C++. And
Mm-hmm.
in Python, the size is significantly larger. So to sort of
Okay.
reduce this, instead of saying type equals a string or a name, we just make it a number. So it's like a
Uh-huh.
list
Okay.
where 0 represents
So the
special stuff,
28 is 28 bytes
bytes,
or
yes, bytes. Let
bytes.
me just,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Um, so the 0 for an integer in Python, that's the smallest, I think, which is 28.
Okay. Okay. So the
Uh,
smallest is 28 bytes.
28, yeah.
An
And then
integer.
Sorry,
An integer is 28 bytes.
that's integer. Integer is 28. I think I wrote it somewhere here.
Oh, okay.
Integer is 28.
Oh, I see.
Bytes 37.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, started. Yeah. So instead of saying spatial pub or spatial pub, it's just in the documentation there will be like a reference to the type as 0 or 1 or 2 or 3
Mhm.
or that kind of stuff. So the spatial sub is just for nodes, and this section
Mhm.
is like for matches. So matcher spatial
Mhm.
pub. There should be
Okay,
matches, sorry.
okay.
Right. And now we have the node ID.
Mhm.
This could be a unique identifier. Something
Mhm.
I was thinking of is there anything wrong with actually embedding the IP into this ID?
Uh,
Is it like,
probably not a good idea.
okay, then it's
Because
fine.
the node ID should be independent of the actual IP.
Okay,
The IP can
that's fine.
change, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
makes sense.
In some
That makes
cases, the
sense.
IP can change. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Matcha also has its own ID, identifier with Matcha ID.
Mhm.
So instead of having IP address and port like separately, I just put them as one address. And then instead of
Okay.
saying pub area or sub area, it's just one area of interest because it's generally the same thing. You have a radius, you have a position X, and you have a position Y.
Right. Right.
So
Mhm.
the area of interest basically just covers that, which is similar to what you had, I think. And then you have a payload. For now, it's a string. I'm still sort of thinking about how if this is a wise decision to embed into the request. Because what if this was 1 gig? Then you're making a 1 gig request over a network.
Mhm. Right.
Anyways, that's a thing for in future. But so the idea is okay. So now, if the request type is 8, which is a pub request or matcha pub request, you know, you have the type. So the first parameter is the first thing. I made it such that the first thing to check is the type. If the type is pub or sub, or or unsubscribe, then you're checking that type, and then depending on the type, these other values are then managed, or
Mhm. Okay.
the algorithms executed based on what type it is. So so now this is just the standard as we discussed yesterday. Just perform the normal check if it's a local, if it's a standard, if it's found within, if the overlap is within the matcher, perform the standard process. Else, query the phone layer for the nearest. So the nearest one checks. If it's not found, forward to the near. So it's like matcher 1 falls to matcher 2. If matcher 2 does not find the overlap area, if the overlap is not present there, forward to matcher 3. And until that matcher is found, then perform the so if it's found, just get the address of that matcher with the AI area. That's the originating matcher, which will be this address. And then this matcher then establishes a connection with that originating IP and port, and then it makes a sub request. So it's this because I'm basically saying at that point this matcher is going to say, okay, I received your publish request. Now, add me to your subscription list so that I can receive messages anytime there's a publish request on that matcher. Now it's a bit tricky because I don't know if that is making sense in my head, if I'm just picturing things. But the idea is anytime there's now anytime there's a publish request made on the originating matcher, there's always a sense of forwarded to the to that destination matcher. Does that make sense? So remember, every matcher already has its sub list, right? And when the publisher is publishing, it scans. And so this was a small addition I made. I'm not sure if it makes sense in practice, but it's like, okay, I'm making this pub request. Check, this my area in matcha 1, forward to matcha 2, forward to, let's say I found it in matcha 3, then matcha 3 is saying, okay, I see there's a pub request from matcha 1. Matcha 3 is like, okay, I'm going to make a sub request, so matcha 1 can add matcha 3 to his subscription list. And then anytime there's a pub request, which at that point there was already one pub request, all the messages from that publisher basically publishes to that matcher, because it's already like in the, but it's a bit weird because now it's like, where's the line between subscription and publishing? But I just made it for now. It's a bit I'll thinking about that properly. But anyways, if the type is 6, which is subscription, special sub, this, it's simple. There's a type. Because of there's a type, there's a node ID, there's an address, and there's the area of interest where you want to subscribe to. Matcha performs the overlap check if it's present. And if it's present, just do the normal process, which is to add to sublist. Else, if it's not present, query the Von layer for the nearest matcher. You have the type, the same structure, you have the matcher ID, you have the address and the AOI, and if the nearest has been found, add to sublist. If the nearest was not found, just keep forwarding until you find it, and just add that matcher to the destination's sublist. Now, if request type equals 7, which is to unsubscribe now, right? Yeah, unsubscribe. So I'm sending my request that I want.
It might help to indicate what's by the number, what type of message.
By the number.
Yeah, because it's easier to understand.
Sorry about that. Unsubscribe. All right, I'm gonna do that as well. If it's a matcha unsubscribe request, then want to send the request and say, okay, I want to unsubscribe from this area. So I was thinking about this, and in theory, and please correct me if I'm wrong, in theory, I can subscribe for maybe previously I subscribed for radius 20 and position 5,5. But now I want to unsubscribe from this. It's the same position, but a specific region in that area I subscribe to. And I was thinking, is that a practical scenario where I am still subscribed, but I don't want, I don't know if I can show a drawing here. So I'm going to show that quickly. I was subscribed to this region, right? But now I want to unsubscribe from just this, I don't know, this section. And in theory, it should be possible, right?
Yes.
But it's still subscribed to this. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so what you would do in that case is, I would say that you would need to unsubscribe from the bigger region, and then you need to subscribe to a new region. I mean, that's the simplest way of handling that, in my opinion. You don't want to go and editing areas, and I don't think it's that's unnecessary complexity, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. So just remove and then okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
that's
it's
fine.
just 2 messages instead of having to like, oh, are you subtracting now? And then you have to do some complex calculation or something. You don't want the you don't basically want the matchers just to do easy, adding stuff to lists and checking lists, and then forwarding messages.
Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. So perform the standard process, remove from sublist, else query the nearest matcher, and if the same thing is done, this should be removed as well. Sorry, remove from sublist as well. So it's more or less the same thing, just reverse. So the key, I didn't include this part yet because this part is about what do we do in a situation like this? What happens, which probably should be the default method, and it's still something I'm thinking of. But you have matcher 1, 2, 3, and there's a request that covers practically all matches, The simplest approach I could think of was when there's a request received, the first thing the matcher should check is, does it exceed my region or my boundary? So for example, I'm going to use node 6. Sorry. If node 6 does not exceed this rectangle or does not go out of the rectangle, then just add to sublist when there's a subscription request. But if it goes outside the region or the bounding area, then forward to all the neighbors around it. So that's where the Von layer sort of comes in and says, okay, check the neighbors and check if this is in my region. It checks if it's in its region. It also checks if it exceeds its region, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't exceed, if it's just within, two of them, then you basically add to sublist. So here, if you notice here, I said if it does not exceed, add to sublist only. And if it exceeds, just forward to all neighbors. And if there's a match found around the neighbors, then add to sublist. Now, in terms of the position, if the node moves to a position, I said set flag. So I use the word flag because I remember we did that with PLCs. That was like in my undergraduate years, but I'm guessing it's similar to making a request or to basically to set an alert to the matcher that, look, I am changing from one position to the next position. And if the move request is received by the matcher, there's a bit of overlap check. And if the overlap is in the same region, update sublist. And but there's a tricky part now, because I think that's where the question comes in as to if the node changes position, is it also changing interest, or is it changing just the position, or is it changing position and request? Because if it's just changing interest, not request. If it's just changing interests, the only thing that sort of changes is probably the subscriptions, right? But I mean, it's possible that a node moves to a different matcher,
Right,
but
definitely.
still has the same interest, right? Yeah, exactly. So if it's just interest changes, then it doesn't really matter, because as the node moves, it's just moving. It does not change its interest. It only it only changes when this node says, I want to change interest. But at the same time, we also know that if there's an overlap, because the whole idea is sorry, I'm thinking about this. If the overlap has to do with the radius of the node itself, and then that's a different conversation entirely, which is not the way we are approaching it now. So that was a bit tricky. Sorry.
Before we move on to nodes moving,
Yeah.
So let's just discuss this when a subscription or a publication area is bigger or or covers more than one, because it doesn't even have to be bigger. It just needs to be not wholly within a matcher's area. Okay, so
Yes.
I would say what you would need to do is you would need to check. You're completely correct. You check if that, does the publication or the subscription area, is it overlap with a matcher's area? If the answer is yes, then you need to process it as normal, and then you need to check, okay, but does it overlap with any of my neighbor's area? In other words, neighboring matcher's area. And if it overlaps with any of the neighboring matchers area, then you need to forward that subscription or publication message to that matcher as well. So I don't think you need to forward it to all the neighbors, but you do need to do a check where you say, does this overlap with any of my neighboring matchers area? Which also means that matchers need to exchange their, the areas under their control with their neighboring matchers, so that the matcher always knows these are my neighbors and this is the areas which is under their control.
Okay. Sounds like there needs to be some form of dictionary or storage for neighbors and their regions. of some
Yeah,
sort.
but you can get that from, you should be able to get that from the Von layer. If I
From the
remember.
Von layer, yes. Yeah.
But the point is, I wouldn't forward any of those publication or subscription messages to all neighbors. I would first check, does it overlap with any of the neighbors area, and then only forward it to the neighbor. Because remember, if the message is also bigger than the neighbor's area, it might need to forward it again. So I would just say, check if it overlaps with your area. Yes, process it. Check if it overlaps with any of the neighbor's area. If yes, forward that to that neighboring matcher. And that's all it needs to do.
Okay.
And
So
I guess
it
you
means
could do that if you want to save on bandwidth, you could do it in the same manner as you would do that, what do you call it? That, what's that tree in the Varrocast paper? The
what's
Spinning tree?
spinning tree?
spanning tree, that's the word, yes, yeah. Minimum spanning tree, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean,
Sorry.
for now, if you just forward it to every one of the neighbors, then, it should still, you actually do want the minimum spanning tree, but at least you would know which are the neighbors which you potentially need to forward this message to.
Okay, that's fine. Makes sense. I see what you mean. So I'm guessing that should then probably be integrated with the standard process, and not necessarily like as an additional functionality. Because I mean, in theory, it would have to do it every time.
Yes, every time it gets
there's
a
a
message, it
request.
would need to check, does it overlap my area? Yes, process it. And then check, does it overlap with any of the neighboring, if it overlaps with any of the neighboring areas. I guess the answer is if it doesn't overlap with any of the neighboring areas, then you probably want to find out, okay, but which of the neighbors are the closest to the publication area or the subscription area, because then that's the single matcher to which that message should be forwarded.
Okay. All right, no, that's fine. I actually also wanted to ask Shunyan about
Yeah.
so at the Von layer, I know that it sort of knows about the neighbors, but does it know about the bounding regions of the
Okay,
neighbors as well?
that's a good question. Actually, once you have the neighbor's position, what at least in the JavaScript implementation, what happens is you have a sort of a module that computes all the Voronoi edges given a set of coordinates points. Okay.
Okay.
So, I mean, and that has a well-defined interface. You can look that up. There are some, also it does like area checking as well and returns like true or false for overlap. Okay, for example. And what happens is you're wondering if you can get the, I guess the matchers information from there and the neighbors.
Yes. Yeah. In terms of the neighbors and the area, because
Right. You don't
it's
get
probably
the,
gonna
what you get is the list of edges.
the edges.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 I
Exactly.
mean, when
And
the
it's,
Voronoi is being computed, the input is the sites. The output is actually the edges. You see?
the output is the edges.
Yes. But that does not mean like which edge. Okay, and in the JavaScript, I think there is an overlap test. Okay, which is simply to verify if there's an overlap between a given area and also the region of a particular, I guess, particular neighbor or site. This is what it's being, the term is called site in Voronoi. So, but I think you can have access to the edges. It performs overlap tests, but I'm not sure how you can get the area. Okay, you see? I mean, area is defined by edges, that's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, actually, I think in the data structure, if I recall, given a site, which is a coordinate of a neighbor, it actually returns like a list of edges.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
that
so as well,
defines
yeah.
that. Yeah, I think the algorithm does that. But
And there are some
I'm sorry.
there are some algorithms for determining if a point is within an area. If you've got a closed
Right.
polygon, then there's an easy way to determine if it's inside or not inside of the.
Right. And the edges are directional. They actually have a
Yes,
certain
yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if you check out the edge and if they're at the right hand side of the edge, for example, right?
Yeah.
Then that means it's within that polygon.
All right.
Okay.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, but I would actually recommend. I'm only sharing on a high level what you can do. Just recommend just also that the component handle this.
Oh.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
But you can, I think you can safely assume something like that will work, regardless of the partitioning approach.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if there's an overlap check, then you might not need to worry too much.
Right.
Okay, but that's fine. That's fine. I think the next thing
Oh,
I would look into that JavaScript code again. I remember
okay.
I had
All right. So is that the main update for now?
yes, that's the main update for now.
Okay.
We want to continue again today. We did some work yesterday, but it was rushing, so it was a bit tricky in terms of the code development.
Mhm.
But I think we have something planned again for today. I spoke to him this morning. I'm just waiting for him to confirm the time.
Okay. Who is it?
Anisio, sorry.
Oh,
Anisio.
Anisia. Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
I see.
But now, I mean, I think once this is sort of approved-ish in terms of, for example, the type. I'm not sure if I should go with this or I should just keep it simple and say special pub. And I can say 0 and in the comment section just add special pub or special sub or that kind of thing.
Okay. These are, I think, you just make sure the implementer, the developer knows, okay?
No, sure.
And and agrees, okay?
Mm.
Because I think this is, can consider how it will be easier to implement.
Okay.
But for the, I think for the algorithm part, okay, so right now there's already this version, right? And I think the so Herman, I mean, what do you see as the next main step? I mean, from your perspective.
So okay, I think if we have the single matcher version working, I think what we would need to have next, I think, is to have some kind of a integration with Vast, I think, because that will allow us to have the Von layer where nodes can basically join. Okay. So I'm not talking about for Victory, but in general. So
Right.
I think
Yes.
I think we need some integration with Vast so that we can at least say these are the nodes, and then does the Von layer actually give us this information that we think we get from the Von layer?
Okay.
For Victory, I think. By the way, integer is 4 bytes. It's not 28 bytes. But anyway.
No, I know. I mean, like I think it's a Python thing. I'm not really sure. I think it's because it's Python that it handles data differently or something.
Okay. So I think it's still important not to focus on the fixed scenario, right? And not the one where things are moving around. And then I think it's important still to say we're limiting ourselves to just having publications, subscriptions, and unsubscriptions. and I think what we said in one of the previous meetings is that the important question is, how do we do the forwarding of these messages to the correct matcher so that it can process the message. So the scenario, there's the two scenarios are basically when, there's basically, I think there's basically three scenarios when you have a public area. So whether it's a subscription or a publication. The one is when it's completely within the matcher you're connected to. The second one is when it's completely within one of the other matchers. And now the question is just how do you get to that other matcher? And then the third option is when the area is bigger than a single matcher and it overlaps with multiple matchers. But I think the important part is when a matcher receives a message, it basically needs to process that message as if it consistently all in the same way. In other words, I'm getting a message, it's from a how do I need to handle it? Does it overlap with my area? Do I need to forward it to any of the other matchers? And that is it's always the same. And then it's like, this is a subscription message, so I need to do a subscription, or this is a publication message, so I need to do it in that way. And then when you figured out what is the information that you need, then you can say, okay, but does the VON layer actually provide me with this information that I get from the neighbors? And I think it's important to nail down that exact procedure.
Okay.
Okay, so basically, I think Herman's talking about the forwarding, right?
Yes.
The decision to forward.
Yeah.
Actually, the forwarding logic, essentially. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to basically make sure the forwarding logic will work across all the nodes, and likely it's the same logic. Okay. At every. Right?
Sorry.
I mean, it's the same logic.
It's the same logic.
It's one of the matchers. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So just to confirm, this JavaScript version, was it built on top of the Vorocast paper version as well?
No.
No. Okay.
So
Makes
basically, it only has the bare VON network working, meaning that you can build a Voronoi overlay, but with connections just to the closest neighbors, which are called the enclosing neighbors. Okay. So that is actually sort of an improvement that we can do with our work. Okay. To add the forwarding mechanisms on top of that. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so basically, I think for tomorrow, if we can confirm the forwarding logic, that will be great.
Okay.
So
makes sense.
make sure that it works, in logic, and also discuss. Okay, all right. So let's discuss the forwarding logic tomorrow then. All right.
All right.
Cool.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
Thanks so much.
So thanks, Victoria and Herman. All right, and talk tomorrow.
Man.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Yeah. Bye. Bye.
Bye.